An Empire of Ice and Fire by Longclaw 1-6. Chapter 84. A Pack Asunder.
You arrested my sister!
Fire and blood in his eyes, John slammed Littlefinger against the wall by the collar of his doublet. It took every bit of his self-control not to shift his hands to the oily aristocrat's neck. "John, please, stop!" Sansa begged, fear on her face. Daenerys only watched with crossed arms, the anger simmering beneath her icy expression. "Give me one reason why I shouldn't have you beheaded. Or have John strangle you." "Your Highness, Littlefinger began to sputter, the Emperor pulling harder on his collar. His voice only spurred John's anger.
"I should strangle you right here, you little shit!"
Only Sansa's word had convinced him to appoint Littlefinger. John would have put him on trial if he had followed his own instincts. Sansa stepped forward, placing her hands on his arm. "John, he acted under my orders." Suddenly, the grip on Littlefinger's doublet slackened, the man toppling to the floor in a sputter of coughs. For the first time since learning of Arya's arrest, John paid him no heed. His jaw slackened, gaping like a fish, as both he and Daenerys stared at his sister in complete and total shock.
What did you say? Did I hear you correctly?"
"Either it is shared madness, John, or else you did. For I heard it too." Dany blinked, hoping that Sansa was just trying to avoid having the Emperor murder someone with his bare hands. "Tell me it isn't true." Family backstabbing was nothing new to either House Stark or Targaryen, but it was new to the pack. Sansa hung her head. "It is true, as much as I wish it weren't." In a daze, John had to brace himself against the wall to stop himself from collapsing.
"Why?"
His voice was but a murmur. The passion of a dragon left plenty of room to tumble into the abyss.
"Why would Arya betray me? Betray our family?"
Littlefinger coughed, clearing his throat as he composed himself. "After I obtained a warrant to search the Lord Baratheon's quarters, I discovered a hidden alcove with, faces inside." John just stared blankly at a random spot on the wall, while Daenerys listened, sorrow in her violet eyes. "It is without a shadow of a doubt that Arya is one of the faceless men. Our going theory is that she was trying to put Gendry on the throne." Sansa cut in. "I cannot fathom why, and it breaks my heart. But the whole ploy with the faceless men seems to be part of a coordinated effort at a Baratheon restoration." "Gendry would never do that. He's loyal and a good man." It broke Daenerys' heart as much as Jon's, but she managed to keep from breaking down. It makes no sense." Abruptly, John stormed out of the room, head in his hands and a brooding glower on his face. "John, wait!" Sansa called out. She was stilled by Dany. "I'll talk to him, sister." As the Empress followed John, hurrying after him, Sansa sighed and fell into a chair. "That was brutal." She felt tears well in her eyes. "I must have broken his heart." It was to be expected. Littlefinger stood next to Sansa, comfortingly patting her shoulder, quite intimately. "John was always close to Arya, who loved him unconditionally when he was a mere bastard. I would be shocked if he took the news of her treachery well at first, but I have no doubt he'll accept it. The evidence is ironclad." Sansa fought every instinct she had not to rip Littlefinger's hand off her. Now wasn't the time or place. He can't be allowed to see her, not until the trial. Much too painful. Littlefinger smiled lovingly down at her. Gods, so much like her mother. If he honestly could say. Sansa looked even more beautiful than Catelyn did at her age. Such radiance wasted on an awkward or whelp like Podrick Payne. "You love your brother?" She nodded, fighting back tears. I'm glad. His Majesty will need those that are loyal to him in the coming fight against the dead, and the succession fights that will surely follow. If Lord Baratheon wasn't part of plots for a Baratheon restoration, he will be now. Wiping the droplets from her lids, Sansa's expression hardened. Yes, he needs those loyal around him. To have those that have wronged him exposed of their duplicity. Littlefinger grinned in triumph, not noticing the flicker of the hand's eyes as she made her declaration. Line break. I'm not talking to you, scumbag. No precautions were not taken with the last of the faceless men. After holding Arya down, the Dothraki blood riders chained her to the chair, leaving barely any room for her to move. Chaining the world's deadliest assassin, preventing her from any tricks. If I could, I'd kill you right here, Joffrey ass kisser, Arya hissed, squirming against the chains.
Easy, girl,
Sandor Clegane cautioned.
Don't try something you can't follow through on.
Arya glared at him. Fuck you. Her eyes shifted to the man sitting across from her. And fuck you too! Lord Baelish had questioned her every day over a plot to assassinate Dany and the Little Wolves and install Gendry on the throne after renewed instability. What a bunch of horse shit! But somehow the Master of Laws had convinced the Crown, and here she was. Smiling, Littlefinger stood, smoothing out his coat. I am afraid it isn't my humble self that will be questioning you today. Her eyes narrowed. If it isn't Jon or Daenerys, then I'm not interested. She wished to talk to Gendry, but Arya doubted Littlefinger would let him anywhere near her at this point. I think you'll be interested. Smile never wavering. He opened the door to the interrogation room in the dungeon. Come in, my lady. Arya's eyes widened slightly as Sansa stepped into the room. She wore a full black dress, pin of the hand clipped to her breast, and a chain held by a dragon clasp draped over her. Her fiery red hair pulled back in a severe bun, the colour of dragonfire. If there was a prototypical Targaryen Hand of the King, Sansa embraced the part. Such meant nothing to Arya. If you mean to intimidate me, it won't work. She snorted. It didn't work when you were 10, and when you were 10, I was 7. And it won't work now. I didn't expect it to, Sansa replied coldly, taking the seat Littlefinger had offered her. The Master of Laws says you haven't been cooperative. The Master of Laws can get a sword up his ass for as far as I'm concerned. Littlefinger merely leaned on the wall, enjoyment written over his face. Sensing Sansa wasn't about to speak, she decided to tell the less profane version of what she had taught Baelish and the Hound. I'm not cooperating because I didn't do anything, but to protect our brother and sister. Oh? By being a part of a group conspiring to end the Empire? To restore House Baratheon to the throne?
Do you honestly believe that?
Arya reddened with anger. If you are, you're still as stupid as you were before all of this shit. She was unfazed. What does Gendry know? An inhuman rage seized Arya.
Don't you fucking talk about him!
Her voice was low, menacing. Then who was part of your conspiracy?
There was no fucking conspiracy! I killed the assassins! I killed their leader!
She rattled against her binds.
Jon burnt down the House of Black and White, but I killed the man that controlled the operation.
Crossing her arms, Sansa's expression shifted not a bit. As cold as the north she had been born of. Father's sayings. They keep running through my mind. She allowed herself a chuckle, but it didn't reach her eyes. The evidence is undeniable. You're being a member of the Faceless Men and not telling us of it. Not telling Jon, or Daenerys, or Mother. Not warning us after the attempt on Daenerys' life at Riverrun, but... She paused, letting it hang. I want to believe you, Arya. I really do. Littlefinger howls. Even the hound felt it an interrogation tactic. Arya knew better, catching it immediately. Her expression changed not one iota, except for the minuscule raising of an eyebrow, unseen by all except her sister. Get on with it, Sansa. Sansa trembled with an almost too perfect anger. It was you that killed our uncle. You who causes our mother to cling to life by a thread. You who nearly killed our niece. You, Arya, which is why you are in this cell. Arya lunged forward, straining at her chains. You're one to talk. You betrayed father, you two-faced bitch. Hate burned on her face. You supported Joffrey, weeping and snuggling up to him like a love-sick idiot, even going so far as to betray him and Robb, leading to his death. The great and noble Sansa Stark, her reputation built on a mountain of betrayal. Sansa rose, eyes blazing. Listen here, you whelp. I am the reason Jon and Daenerys sit on the throne. She beat against her breast. I secured the support of the Vale. I secured the northern houses and the Blackfish. I kept the lords at bay while Dany lost Dragonstone and Jon was gallivanting on his plan that he told no one about. This empire is built on my efforts, all for Jon and Daenerys. And no one will tear it down. Her rage subsided, freezing into a mask. Not even by you, dear sister. Fine then, so be it. Pursing her lips in a thin line, Sansa turned. Leave her in her chains. She deserves to stew in her own mess for a while. And with that, the hand to the Emperor left. At once, my lady. With a jerk of the hand, Littlefinger ordered Sandor and the Dothraki to follow him out of the room. Left to rot by Littlefinger and the guards as a form of punishment. Arya smirked, her father's words of wisdom ringing in her head. Everything before the word but is horseshit. Line break. Hands grasping the stone rail overlooking the training yard, Daenerys watched in an intense silence as her husband, the Emperor, was engaged in a particularly strenuous sparring session with Grey Worm and the Hound. It had started with a training sword and a staff between Jon and the commander of the Unsullied, but the newest member of the Kingsguard made an offhand comment of how fucking boring the whole shit show was, and how a proper spar could only be conducted with real weapons. Jon countered by drawing Longclaw, and pretty soon steel clashed against steel, and sweat coated their brows as they battled with fury. He certainly seems in a lust for battle, Missandei commented offhand, arms behind her back as she kept her impressed company. Does he ever tire? Daenerys barely heard her handmaiden, instead too intensely focused on her husband. How his muscles flexed underneath the padded armour, raven curls matting to his forehead. He had taken to ditching the bun in favour of letting his hair fall free, as he had when they had first met, while he battled two of the world's most renowned warriors, fending off their combined attacks with a passionate ferocity. It set her alight. Violet eyes dark with enchantment and desire, watching her dragon wolf battle away, sword clashing with Clegane's, fighting it one-handed with his other, batting away a thrust from Grey Worm's spear. A snarl left him as he parried the other blade and then bull-headed his way into the Unsullied shield, forcing Grey Worm to give ground. Jon ordered his guards to never take it easy on him, each giving their all, as he did. Only when training with her did he relent, though less and less as she improved. And gods did she love it when he gave it his all. The pure dragon fire of his attacks and defences, leaving his passion on full display. Images heading straight to her core, leaving the Dragon Queen trembling with lust. Your Highness! Blinking, she looked at Missandei. What? The translator smirked. I was asking you a question. But it appears you were too preoccupied with gazing at his majesty. Daenerys reddened, embarrassment mixed with frustrated desire. She had fully recovered from her childbirth and was ready to have sex with Jon. Well, anyway. But he was preoccupied, and they hadn't yet to her dismay. He does look magnificent when he fights. She smiled with lust and love. That he does. She no longer worried when he sparred, knowing Jon could hold his own. What did you ask, Miss Sunday? Haven't you noticed he's not himself? Turning back to him with new eyes, Dany noticed things that she had missed in her lust. The dull look in his eyes, the frenzy in which he attacked, as if he was deliberately forcing himself forward. Normally he joked and showboated when he sparred, using it as something fun to do. There was no sight of that, Jon. Dany sighed. He hasn't been himself since Arya was arrested. She closed her eyes, sharing his pain. We can't believe she'd do anything. But the trial is tomorrow. A tear fell down her cheek. Her family made her vulnerable. The chink in her armour. One she would always be grateful for. I don't know what to do. Perhaps he just needs love. Looking at Missandei, smiling softly, Dany answered with a smile of her own. Letting out a snarl, Sandor charged with a rightward slash, hoping to catch the Emperor off balance. However, Jon was nimble, sweat pouring off of him. He jumped out of the way and slammed the hilt of his sword against the Kingsguard's shoulder plate, causing him to stumble with a grunt of pain. The attack opened him up to Grey Worm, who forced him back with a swipe of the spearhead. Jon nearly fell, but managed to catch himself, just to block a thrust from his commander. Stop! 3 pairs of eyes flickered to the Empress, entering the courtyard herself. Heaving, Jon raised a finger. Pause. Grey Worm, panting, collapsed to the ground. Quite undignified, but he was too exhausted to care, sucking in breaths as he removed his helmet. Clegane bounded to a large bucket of water and unceremoniously dumped it over his head, soaking and cooling him before he collapsed to the ground himself. Fuck, Emp! He coughed. There's something the fuck wrong with you. While Joffrey would have executed anyone that spoke such about him, Jon merely flipped him off, tired himself. Before he could say anything to Daenerys, the silver-haired Empress grabbed his hand and tugged him out of the courtyard. Don't speak, she commanded, pulling him through the halls towards the Imperial chambers. Jon kept silent, her tone leaving no room for dissent. Doors shutting behind them, Dany pulled Jon into a deep kiss. A hungry one. A pleading one. One begging him to let out his emotions into a passionate coupling. Like the dragon she was, Daenerys demanded it, pushing her husband to the wall and plundering his mouth. Dany! What has gotten into you? Jon growled out between kisses. Anyway, I am whizzing past that. Okay, here we go. We both needed that, she said, kissing his chest right above his scar. We did. Jon's voice was hoarse with emotion. He sighed, sadness replacing the earlier euphoria and numbness. I'm worried, Dany. I know, my love. She cupped his cheek. He shook his head. Arya didn't betray me. I don't know what Sansa and Littlefinger are doing, but she is innocent. Seeing acceptance and agreement in her expression, Jon went on. I will pardon her before the trial. I don't care what that will show. Dany leaned up and kissed him. She's my family too. The pack sticks together, or else it won't survive. We can't let our family die. Catching a smile from him at her loyalty, the lips brushed together, as a further desire stirred. A knock on the door disturbed their peace. Go away, Jon snarled. Jon, please, let me in. It was Sansa, not someone either could ignore. Cursing in High Valyrian, which caused Dany to giggle, Jon threw on his breeches and stormed over to the door. Sansa's eyes widened as she gazed on him shirtless, the implication obvious with Daenerys still nestled in the bed. She chose to ignore it. We need to talk. Line break. Xylus watched in silent horror, narrowed eyes sweeping over row upon row of corpses. Bodies in various states of decay, from fresh to mere skeletons, lined up as far as the eye could see in every direction. Men, giants, mammoths, ice spiders, direwolves. Every form of undead creature that could be assembled by the most inhuman force to have ever graced the earth. Including the most fearsome of all, one Xylus had known personally in his long lifetime. A sweet, gentle beast, nothing like the creature that towered before him. Tied to an undead horse, one of the generals atop it, Xylus heard the crunch of boots atop the fluffy white snow behind him. A distinctive footfall he could identify anywhere. So I take the war is beginning. The Night King stepped alongside him, staring at the last rays of the northern sun before it would disappear beneath the clouds and the horizon. So far north, winter brought total darkness, and the day, long night.
Soon, the great fall approaches, my friend, and with it the greatest power.
Second greatest. Icy blue eyes shifted to Xylus. There exists only one greater, wielded by your brother.
My brother is long dead.
He twirled a piece of the dragon glass in his hand, never having parted with it once.
And I hold the last of his legacy upon this earth.
The behemoth, right ahead of them, loomed large.
The boy is but a distraction. Soon he will be dead as well, and his woman mine.
With that, he stepped forward towards his mount.
Command shouting to all, "Forward!"
The army of the dead lurched forward like a drunken sailor, slow, ponderous, but ever forward. Gazing up into the fury of the blizzard, his creation obscured more and more as he ascended onto his mount. Xylus let out a defiant scream. "You will never win!" It was lost in the howl of the wind. But the Night King's senses were powerful, his psionic voice piercing any force of man or nature.
Neither of us believe that, my friend. Neither of us.
With a demonic screech, his mount charged forward, Xylus hanging his head in shame, as the other walkers ordered the army of the dead forward. In the distance, he could almost see the tops of the wall poking above the horizon. End of chapter. Hi guys, hope you enjoyed that. Oh boy. Okay, this is interesting. Littlefinger? Oh, you just wait. Next chapter's a dramatic one, guys. I remember this quite well. Anyway, you guys know the drill. Like, comment and subscribe. Hit the bell to get notified when I ever upload a new video. Have a good day, night, whatever time zone you're in. Bye, my guys, gals, and non-binary pals. Take care of yourselves, okay? Bye!